Let's talk about preventing weight loss in older adults. Welcome to the Geriatric Dietitian, your go-to resource for nutrition that supports health, independence, and confidence in aging. I'm your host, Katie Dodd, registered dietitian and geriatric nutrition expert. Let's dive in. Today I'm going to be talking to you all about why unintended weight loss in older adults is such a big deal, and then also what you can do about it. So, what I'm sharing on the screen right now is a one-page fact sheet that I created actually quite a few years ago to explain why, through my brand, The Geriatric Dietitian, I am on such a mission to stop unintended weight loss in older adults. If you've seen my YouTube content, if you've seen the content on my website, The Geriatric Dietitian, there's a lot of information about stopping unintended weight loss, promoting weight gain, high calorie foods, and that might seem pretty counterculture to what we typically see online. And my hope is through this video, I am going to impress on you why unintended weight loss is such a big deal. And I do want to add this little fact sheet I'm sharing with you. You could actually get a copy if you'd like. I can send it right to your inbox. I've got a link below, and just go ahead and click on that, put in your name, email, and I will send you a PDF version of this if you want to print it off, share it, all of the things. So when an older adult loses weight unintentionally, we know that they are losing muscle. And I'm talking unintentionally. I'm not talking, okay, I'm working with my healthcare provider. I'm making sure that I am getting good protein. I am exercising. I'm doing all the things to lose weight, maybe in a more healthy way. I am talking about someone is not even intending to lose weight. Maybe they don't have good appetite. Maybe they just don't even notice they're losing weight. And if that's happening, unintended weight loss, then we know that muscle loss is occurring. So this is a big deal because I want you to think about it. What is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Maybe you stretch, you get out of bed, you go brush your teeth, you go get dressed, you make yourself some breakfast. What is something that you need to do all of those things? Muscle. If you don't have muscle, you lose your independence. And this is a big deal because, quite frankly, we save up for retirement and we're done with our job. We're planning for the golden years. These are like meant to be some of the best years of our lives. And if someone has lost muscle, they've lost their ability to be independent, that's really going to impact their quality of life and, quite frankly, their health, because that does lead to increased risk of falls, going into the hospital, and all of the things. But I'm jumping ahead of myself because if you can't tell, I get a little fired up about this topic. So, unintended weight loss in older adults is a big deal because older adults have less muscle to start with because of sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is I would say, natural loss of muscle mass that we experience as we age. Now, are there things you can do to prevent sarcopenia? Absolutely. But I will say, I don't think we're having enough conversation about muscle health in our country, in our world. And so we just typically see this loss of muscle with age, and strength training and getting the right nutrition for muscle health really isn't a big part of the conversation yet. Hopefully we're seeing a shift and this will change more. So if you look at this PDF, this is not an accurate representation, but I just created it for you to have a visual of what sarcopenia looks like. So what we're looking at is a representation of a cross section of a leg. Imagine we're like, looking through magically through someone's leg, and we're able to see what is the composition of the body inside that leg. So this little white spot, we'll call that the bone. This red, we'll call that muscle. And then the more cream color is body fat. So we're looking at a 25-year-old versus a 75-year-old. On the outside, this is like the same shape. You probably couldn't even tell what's going on the inside. But for maybe a young 25-year-old who is active, has lots of muscle, they have a lot more muscle compared to fat. Where someone who's maybe older has experienced sarcopenia, they now have more body fat and less muscle. So I want you guys to see what this looks like. And there are actual pictures online if you want to Google sarcopenia and see like actual pictures of this. But if someone has less muscle to start with and they lose weight unintentionally, now they have even less muscle. And that's where we run into problems. So you'll see here, I'm just going to kind of go through this handout with you guys. Different ages, same weight, but the older adult has significantly less muscle. So I do want to address this common question of, well, what if someone is overweight? Isn't weight loss good? So the first thing I always want to say is that losing muscle is never good. Okay? Losing muscle is never a good thing regardless of weight. I feel like our culture is very much focused on weight. Someone starts losing weight, even if it's unintentionally, people say, "Congratulations, what's your secret? You look amazing." And the geriatric dietitians and all the geriatric specialists out there who specialize in this topic are like, oh no, you're losing muscle. This is horrible. So if someone is overweight, that is kind of a whole different conversation on, what it could look like if weight loss is even indicated and making sure that we protect muscle with weight loss. But I also want to mention the fact that body mass index, also known as BMI, ranges are different for seniors. Now, if you live in the world, you probably have heard of BMI at one point in your life. And this is, I could go on and on. I will do another video in the future all about my big feelings with BMI. But BMI is used in the healthcare setting. They look at your height, they look at your weight, and they compare it to some table and they tell you that this is what your BMI is. And that is typically related to your health, right? You're underweight, you're normal weight, you are overweight or obese. So I want to talk to you guys about what BMI guidelines are. And if you're not familiar, I often share this with dietitians who know off the top of their head what the BMI ranges are. But typically it's around like 18 to 25 is normal, 25 to 30 is overweight, 30 and above is considered obese. So for older adults, we know through research that BMI guidelines are different. So we can't be using the standard guidelines of saying 18 to 25 is good for older adults when we know that science shows BMI ranges are different for older adults. So I have another picture on here. And so this is another graphic I made. And this is based on a study that was published in 2014. It was a BMI and all-cause mortality in older adults, a meta-analysis. And a meta-analysis just means it's a big study that looks at lots of different studies. And this is good research. Sometimes you can do a small study with 10 people and like, okay, that's interesting, but what does that really tell us big picture? But when we do a meta-analysis, we're looking at lots of study, lots of people. I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but I think it's something like 114 or 140,000 participants were pooled together in this meta-analysis that they looked at. So this is good research. This is a very strong study. And so what the study was looking at was the risk of, BMI and the risk of death in those over age 65. And what they found was kind of a U-shaped relationship between BMI and risk of death. At the bottom of the U, this is kind of the sweet spot, the lowest rates of death were found with BMIs of 27 to 27.9. Now remember I just said, BMIs of 25 to 30 are considered overweight. When someone is typically overweight in the healthcare system, they're recommended to lose weight. But here we are looking at the science, and it's showing for older adults, a BMI of 27 is actually associated with the lowest rate of death. Now, here's where things get interesting. So we kind of go up this U shape. It's kind of a skewed U. If someone has a BMI of 30.9, they're actually still good. They are technically in the obese range, but they are still good. We go up to a BMI of 33 and we still see no significant increased risk of death. And it's not until BMIs get up to 37, 37.9 that they saw a significant increase in risk. Now, flip side, we go down a smidgen. We go down to 24, still good. But once we get to 20 or less, there's a 28% higher risk of death. So what this take-home message is showing that for older adults, a BMI of 24 to 30 is associated with the lowest risk of death in older adults. And I didn't mean to go on this much of a tangent, but I want to talk really quickly about why. Why is it that these BMI guidelines for the standard adult says that, okay, 25 to 30 is overweight, but here this research is saying 24 to 30 is actually perfect for older adults? Why is that? It's going to go right back to our conversation up here. It has to do with the sarcopenia. Weight is just a number, and this is one of the weaknesses of BMI is that it's just looking at a number. It's not looking at the composition of our body. Because remember, these two people, we're going to assume they weigh the exact same amount, but one person has significantly more muscle than the other person. And so with someone who maybe has a slightly higher BMI, well, gosh, we know they have more body fat. So the slightly higher BMI also has a little bit more muscle, right? So of course, everyone's a little bit different, but this is big picture of what we're looking at. So I will say when I was working with clients, I did get referrals for older adults who were overweight. Their BMI was in that 25 to 30 range, and I would get a referral that they needed to lose weight. But we know through science that first off, BMI ranges are different for older adults, and also just making that general recommendation, hey, lose weight, especially without having conversations about muscle health and sarcopenia is a big deal because, you can lose weight and you can get to be at the perfect BMI, but if you've lost muscle, remember you've lost independence, and that's a big deal. So how should weight be addressed for older adults? And I do have another slide for you, and I'm going to show you guys kind of some more tips here, but high level, I always recommend a consult with a registered dietitian nutritionist with expertise in geriatrics. I know that's not realistic for most people. There's a reason I started my brand, the Geriatric Dietitian. A lot of older adults have never met with a dietitian. I highly recommend it. It is going to be incredibly beneficial for you, but I also know that's not always going to happen, but that's still always going to be my first tip, because a registered dietitian is going to look at you as an individual based on your own individual situation, your health history, your medications, your labs, big picture, and make recommendations specific for you. Now, number 2 is focus on weight stability. So as a geriatric dietitian, I'm very much focused on weight, but not for the point of you're overweight, you're obese, let's lose weight. I am focused on let's keep your weight stable. No big gains, no big losses. And if unintended weight loss starts, then we provide high calorie foods to stop loss and save muscle. And then finally, number 3, if weight loss is intended, meaning maybe you're told you can't get this surgery until you've lost this amount of weight. Maybe you're struggling with actual pain and your doctor's saying, hey, if you did lose some weight, this could help. Okay. If weight loss is intended and medically necessary, then consult with a medical provider and be sure to get enough dietary protein and resistance exercise to protect muscle. Okay. And even with intention, we still might lose a little, but we want to do everything we can to protect the muscle with that loss. So here's the bottom line for you guys. Unintended weight loss in older adults leads to muscle loss. Muscle loss leads to loss in independence. This increases fall risk because you have less muscle and less balance with age too, unless you're doing some good balance exercises. So you're more likely to fall. We know if you fall, you're more likely to go in the hospital, go into the nursing home, and create that cycle where you're going in and out of the system, and it also increases risk of early death. So at the Geriatric Dietitian, I am very passionate about stopping unintended weight loss in older adults because it really is a big deal. Now, let me talk about some tools if you're like, okay, yeah, I hear you, Katie. How do we do this? Because I feel like this handout, I just gave you like a couple tips. So let's talk about your unintended weight loss toolkit. So I'm just going to go through these, I say briefly, but we'll see how long this video goes. Now, as a dietitian, I'm always a fan of a food first approach. If someone is experiencing unintended weight loss, we don't have to run and get supplements, do anything big and dramatic. Hey, let's talk about foods that have a good amount of calories. So it's really focusing on high calorie foods because if you're losing weight, it means you're not getting enough calories. So let's try to get more calories into you. Now, also providing favorite foods. When unintended weight loss is happening, because it's such a big deal, because it leads to muscle loss, which leads to loss of independence, early risk of death. For me, depending on the individual, most nutritional diets are off the table. Let me explain what I mean. Maybe you have diabetes and you're working really hard on controlling your blood sugars. Amazing. And you should certainly keep doing that. Absolutely work with your doctor. But if you're experiencing unintended weight loss and losing muscle and increasing risk of death, then getting enough calories is going to take precedent over any specialized diet. And of course, work with your doctor because we want to try to have a combination of both. But I'm driving home this message that we need to provide food first, but then also your favorite foods. So when unintended weight loss is happening, this isn't the time to get like uber healthy and trying to provide the most healthy foods and how our culture perceives health. Because for me as a geriatric dietitian, it's all about, again, protecting muscle, protecting quality of life. And I hope with that last slide, I really drove that home with you guys. So food first, provide favorite foods that someone's enjoying. And also this one's something we don't often talk about, but also ensure the display of meals looks appetizing. I often say we eat first with our eyes, right? If we look at a meal and I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks delicious. Like our stomach starts rumbling. Oftentimes we actually start salivating in our mouth because we're preparing to start eating that food. And man, the display of food really, really matters versus if you like have a lump of really boring looking food, your plate's all bland, all the foods are the same color, that's not appetizing. So the display of foods actually does make a difference in making foods appealing. Also, creating a pleasant dining environment is huge. Not necessarily like eating in front of the TV or eating with lots of distractions, but having a really nice dining environment at maybe a dining room table with friends, with family. We know we eat more together, and just making sure we're mindful of that environment. It's not like a dark space with a cluttered area and it's, unappealing food, maybe foods that aren't even your favorites. Like we got to look at the whole picture. Another tip is to increase calories in foods already being eaten. I feel like this is where the Geriatric Dietitian website really shines because we have a lot of content on high calorie foods on how can you swap out foods or add to foods that you're already eating to maximize calories. I call this getting more bang for your buck. If you have a poor appetite, you can eat a lot to start with. Let's try to cram as many calories into the amount of food you can eat. So this could look like adding high fat foods, like for example, adding whole milk instead of like skim milk, which has less calories, adding whole milk to your cereal if you're already having that. It could look like adding avocado to a dish. Avocado is high in heart healthy, delicious fats. You could add more butter or heart healthy oils to a dish. You can add cream. You could add cheese. You could add peanut butter. There's all kinds of foods that you can add into the foods you're already eating to maximize calories. And again, I've got lots of content. I'll put a link below to a good one on high calorie food swaps. So the next tip that I often recommend is gain weight with smoothies and shakes. High calorie shakes, high calorie smoothies. These can be store-bought or homemade. And the reason I recommend high calorie drinks is that I've found that when someone's full and they're like, I just cannot eat another bite of food. Okay, what else can we do? People can often sip on a shake, right? They can sip on a drink, they could sip on that straw, sip on it in between meals, and they find they're able to get down a drink even when they can't bite another bite of food. And I think it just goes different when you're drinking something versus, fork, in mouth, chewing, swallowing versus just sipping, right? Just sipping. And so I have found with my clients that high calorie shakes and smoothies has been really, really successful. And I actually do sell on Amazon a high calorie shakes cookbook, which I have right here. I need to find, this is my author copy, so it has a band on it, the one I sell. I don't know where my copy is, but I actually have a high calorie shakes cookbook if you're looking for something. I will put that link below as well. So those are the primary ones I recommend. The last two I'm going to talk about, this is only under the guidance of of your doctor, of a healthcare professional. And you'll notice I have like star italicized, use with caution. So these are not common interventions for unintended weight loss, but they also could come into play. So appetite stimulants are always an option with poor appetite, but a lot of the research and science between appetite stimulants and older adults is not good. So we generally do not recommend appetite stimulants. I mean, wouldn't it be so wonderful with everything that we just give a pill? Just give a pill and solve problems. But this always could be a consideration with your doctor and pharmacist because maybe you're already on medications and they can maybe switch one up and pick one that actually has a side effect of increasing appetite. So there definitely are options that can happen with pharmacology and medications. Talk to your doctor, but this again is low on the list. And I would say the lowest one on the list for me is using tube feeding. Tube feeding, of course, is a way to add calories, and a tube feed could go through the nose, it can go through the mouth, and it can also be like they put the tube into your side, and you have a little it could be a JPEG or there's all kinds of different tube feeds you can get, and tube feedings are an option for someone who is maybe more significantly sick. If you're not able to eat food orally, you're not able to swallow, maybe you have issues going on with your, especially like with oral cancer and you can't swallow. And, there are situations when tube feedings are an option. But again, these are like at the end of my recommended list. And of course, talk to your doctor and healthcare team if these are things you need to explore. But there are lots of ways that we could stop unintended weight loss using food and all these little tricks of the trade. So I do have some resources for you guys. I kind of mentioned them as I was going. If you want to get this handout on why unintended weight loss is such a big deal, you can click below and I've got the link for it. And honestly, I could use your guys' help spreading the word. I feel like the conversation is slowly changing, but we need to talk about this more. We need to talk about why unintended weight loss is such a big deal and why we need to stop unintended weight loss in older adults. I also have a couple of links to articles on my website, The Geriatric Dietitian, that dives in a lot deeper. One is on weight loss in elderly must be stopped. It's pretty much based around this handout. Another one's on preventing unintended weight loss in older adults. And then also I will include the link to that high calorie shakes cookbook that I told you guys about. So that is what I had for you guys in this video today. I hope that this was so valuable. I hope that you were able to take home the big picture message of why unintended weight loss is such a big deal, and then even have some tools on what we can do to prevent unintended weight loss in older adults. And then my last message is like, let's use tools out there and let's spread the word because older adults deserve to have the best quality of life possible. And unfortunately, Unintended weight loss, malnutrition, loss of muscle can steal the time that they have left. And as a geriatric dietitian, my whole goal is that I want to see our population aging in a way that's healthy to have the best quality of life. So anyways, that's what I had for you. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click the subscribe button. You can turn on the notifications to get alerts on when I put out new videos. They're coming out every week. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next week.